You're listening to The Weekend Take, and now your host, Sean Schaefer.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Weekend Take. I'm your host, Sean Schaefer, and joining me this week is creature actor and performer, Troy James. Troy, how are you doing?
Hey, hello, Sean. It's good to see you. Or, not to see you. It's good to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing well.
So, wanted to take this chance to sit down with you and chat a little bit with you, because I know we've known each other now for a couple of years. We met on the set of a film, and it was right at the time that we met. Right after that, things started to kind of take off and take you on a kind of a whirlwind journey.
Indeed.
Since starting the show, you've been one of the people that I've definitely wanted to sit down and talk about that with, because it's been something. It's made me so happy for you to see you on this journey.
Thank you. It's been a wild ride. It's been a crazy adventure. It's been so much fun. I've got to travel. I've got to meet new people, and it's unlike anything I ever would have imagined.
So for the listeners, you and I first met. It's been just over 2 years now. We met on a short film we shot in Ohio called Look Twice, which has been doing fairly well on the festival circuit. And in that, you played our shadow creature. Mm-hmm. When I went and did the lighting tests for the film, you weren't there, so we just had somebody wearing your outfit. I didn't really know what to expect until all of a sudden we start rolling, and you are, to coin your social media handles, you are certainly a twisty Troy.
I wish I had thought more about my Instagram handle. I kind of just made it in the spur of the moment, not knowing that everything would change so quickly and I'd be performing and traveling. But it works. It still works.
So we worked on Look Twice. I believe it was October of 2017, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And some time goes by, the film goes into post, and I'm sitting at home and I'm watching America's Got Talent with my wife and my daughter. And all of a sudden, I see Troy come walking out on stage to audition.
Yes.
And I just had one of those moments where you point at the TV and I know that guy. But before we get into that, in the film Look Twice that we worked on, you played our shadow creature, and you used your abilities as a contortionist to bring a very creepy life to this shadow creature. And I know one of the questions that the judges on AGT asked you after that initial audition was, how did you discover that you had this talent? And so I will ask that same question. So how did you discover that you had this talent? Was it something you found growing up or later in life?
I was born with my degree of flexibility. It was just something I've always had. I actually thought everyone had the same degree of flexibility. I thought it was natural human movement when I was young, because I could do it. I imagined everyone else could. And it was not until the other children at daycare started making it known that it was weird and gross and not normal. It was like an alien. And I remember being so embarrassed that I didn't show anybody. I hid it. I thought, oh, this is a terrible thing to have. I want to be just like all the other children. And of course, my mother didn't like it because she thought I was going to hurt myself or get stuck that way. So I got some negative reinforcement. It was not until high school that it became really cool. We had a kind of talent show, kind of breaking the ice, get to know your classmates. Everyone gets to come up and show something, like show and tell. You can sing a song, read a poem, or in my case, drop to the floor and crawl around like a spider. And it went off pretty well. People liked it.
Was it one of those things where people would see you in the halls during high school and be like, hey, do that thing?
Yeah, I got that pretty often. You're the guy who can do the thing. And everyone called it something different. There were people who called it the exorcist walk, or the spider walk, or the crab crawl, or the backwards thing. I just kind of said, yeah, I'm the person who does the thing. And everyone knew what the thing was. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Obviously not right out of high school. There wasn't a way that you thought that you could make a living at doing the multi-named thing.
Right.
So you went to college.
Yeah, there's a story there. There's in my high school yearbook, my friends wrote, join Cirque du Soleil, go run away and join the circus. It's your destiny. This is amazing. But of course, my mother said, no, you have to go to university and get a degree and get a real job. One's the best for you. So I didn't think that is an avenue that I'd ever be able to take. It was just kind of a fun party trick. To put myself through undergrad, I worked at a theme park. I made the roller coasters go. I was a roller coaster operator. But my crew saw that I had this really cool talent. And every October, the park would transform into a haunted theme park. And I remember management came up to me and asked, "Hey, would you want to be a monster for Halloween? And we'll put you in costume and you get to run around scaring anyone you want." Which I said, "You're going to pay me for that? Are you kidding?" So I did that, and it turns out I was pretty good at it. I guess you could say that's where I got my start, using my talents. And I guess that's kind of why I gravitate to monsters and horror, because that's what I did. My job was to scare people. I got a break later on, but that's initially where it all went down.
Ultimately, though, you heeded mom's advice.
Yes.
You went to university, you got a degree, you got a job, and you were working that job even when you auditioned for AGT.
Yes.
What did you find yourself doing 9 to 5 leading up to that point?
People laugh when I tell them this, but I worked in human resources. I sat at a computer all day. I had my Excel spreadsheets. I sent emails. I was on the phone. It was a very corporate office 9 to 5, very basic office 9 to 5 job. To hear that I did that and then all of a sudden now doing this, people don't quite understand where did that come from. I remember leading the office morning stretch. We would have like a yoga circle or like a health and wellness kind of, everyone get up and stretch and get away from your desk. And I remember I was leading the circle. And after I led it the first time, they told me I was not allowed to lead the yoga circle anymore because no one could do what I could do. But that actually kind of leads into how this started, how my career launched. I was at work, and usually like I wasn't doing crazy party tricks at work. I was there to work, but maybe, after hours or at a work function, maybe you have a glass of wine or two and you want to show everyone you can do the splits. Yay. One day, one of my coworkers said, "Hey, Troy, show me something cool." And he pulled out his phone and he took a little 30-second video of me crawling around the office and he posted it. And that's when my life changed. It went viral. It was getting millions of views. People were calling me. People were wondering, who's that guy? And that's ultimately how I got onto America's Got Talent.
Now, I know that America's Got Talent, until they get to the live shows, everything was pre-recorded. So we worked together on Look Twice, like I mentioned. It was October 2017.
Yeah.
I know that the audition that you did didn't air until, I believe, May of 2018.
Right.
When did you actually audition? When was the physical audition that you attended?
I believe it was earlier that year. It was after Look Twice, believe it or not, because America's Got Talent reached out when the video went viral in 2017, but they had already cast for that season. So they said, "We'll come back next year and get you because we really want you to be on our show." And then I did Look Twice. And then I think I shot America's Got Talent, the first audition in February, March of 2018.
Okay. As is the case with a lot of quote unquote reality television shows, it's not happenstance necessarily all the time that someone comes off the street up to audition and makes it out on that stage. It does seem like a lot of times people are invited, which is fine. And their job is to curate talent. And so they have to find that talent wherever it exists. And that's not to discourage anybody from being that person who just comes off the street and walks up to audition, because there are people who do that as well. There are people who are legitimately discovered auditioning for these shows. So I don't want to discourage anybody. It's just,
I almost didn't do it. I was so nervous because I knew of the show. I knew America's Got Talent, but when I thought of it, I thought, okay, well, AGT is a show where there are professional singers and dancers and acrobats, like people who've been training their whole life to get this opportunity to go on stage and show the world what they've got. And I remember thinking, like, I have a cool party trick, but I don't know if it's AGT material. What am I going to do? And I remember I actually said no the first couple of times, but they were like, "No, we really think you can do this. I really believe in you." And finally I said, okay, I'll give it a shot.
May rolls around. The episode you audition on is aired. What is the response? You wake up the next morning and what has happened?
Oh, geez. It was almost like the first viral video all over again, because when that video went viral in 2017, the 30-second clip, it was everywhere, seemingly. It was all over Reddit and Facebook and 9gag, all of those viral aggregate sites. And I couldn't go a day without someone saying, "Hey, Troy, I saw you on the internet. I saw you on TV." And then after a year, it kind of died down the way viral videos do, like 50 minutes of fame. I thought that was it. But then AGT came out and it just skyrocketed right back to where it was. And then people were calling and people were saying, I saw you on this show and it's amazing. And with AGT, what was interesting was it wasn't just people and friends or off the street saying, hey, I saw you on TV. They were producers and directors saying, I saw your audition and this is amazing. And would you like to be a monster in our film or our TV show? And that's when things really started moving. I got to do a lot of film and television over the next year.
For the people who are listening that either follow AGT or don't, I know the way that AGT works is you go out, you audition, and ultimately at the end of your audition, the judges give you a simple yes or no. And there being 4 judges, you need 3 judges to say yes to move on to the next round. And Troy, you creeped out the judges and got a resounding yes from all 4 judges.
Yes.
You got to move on to the judge cuts round.
Yes.
And it was there that they had a special guest judge for your episode, which was Chris Hardwick.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. You and I have spoken about that particular audition, and ultimately the performance that happened at Judge Cuts wasn't what initially you had envisioned, but it was still a great performance.
Mm-hmm.
They ultimately did not move you on to the live show.
Right.
Is there any part of that you kind of wanted to talk about or address? Or
No, I remember, my original idea, I got this from Howie's comments after the first audition. He said, you're like a human spider. So what I ended up doing was I got my special effects and prosthetics professional friends to build me a spider costume, a real spider costume with multiple eyes and fur that looked like a tarantula. And I was going, for my second audition, I was going to crawl around on a jungle gym as if I was building a web. Maybe it was a bit more ambitious than I could have done in such a short amount of time. But in terms of actual practice on the jungle gym versus the costume itself, trying to squeeze through the little bars and not ripping my costume, well, no, I ended up ripping my costume, so that wasn't going to work. And I ripped it at the last moment. So I had to come up with something different immediately and didn't have much time. So I ended up bringing a judge on stage and using them as a human prop to make a nightmare performance. I brought Chris Hardwick on stage and scared the daylights out of him, crawling upside down as I do. But no, ultimately I didn't make the live rounds. But right after that, I ended up traveling to Winnipeg to work on Channel Zero. So it all worked out.
Yeah, so you move on, you go to do SyFy's Channel Zero,
Mm-hmm.
where you now get to be your first creature work, and you are Pretzel Jack.
Yes.
You are the imaginary friend who comes to life, are you not?
Yes. And that was really one of the most fun roles I got to play, just because Pretzel Jack is kind of like me in real life. He's kind of kooky, little crazy, but still adorable in a weird way when he's not stabbing people to death. He's just, I can't even think of the right word right now, but he's awkward in a way that I see myself.
To kind of set up what Channel Zero and so Channel Zero is an anthology series on SyFy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we had talked about it, that Pretzel Jack was written with you in mind.
I think so. I still went through the audition process, but when I got there, it was like slipping on the glove. Like I felt like I can do this. This is all me.
Pretzel Jack starts off as this young girl's imaginary friend as a child.
Yes. Her name is Jillian. The actress is Maria Sten, who's a lovely, amazing, brilliant actress. And I am her imaginary friend who protects her and cheers her up when she's feeling bad and tries to solve her problems.
And then as she grows up, something happens that causes kind of the resurrection of Pretzel Jack.
Yes, he's in tune with her emotions. She has the power to manifest these creatures. And I'm attuned to her emotions. So when she's feeling upset, I appear and I want to stop what's making her sad. It's almost as though it's the same as when she was young, but when you grow up, you stop having small child problems and you end up having adult problems, real life issues. There are secrets in her marriage. Her therapist is not believing her. She's feeling belittled, and that irritation that manifests itself, and then I appear to try to make things right in my own way.
And in your own way sometimes is not in a non-violent way, but in rather a quite violent way.
Yes, that's the problem. I will remove it. Even if it's your husband's best friend.
You're listening to The Weekend Take. Visit our Patreon page to become a patron of The Weekend Take, and for as little as $1, you'll receive exclusive content and perks.
moving from AGT, you go on to do Channel Zero to become Pretzel Jack. And what else is happening right now? Like everything seems to be surreal at this point.
Yes.
Because here you were, this human resources worker doing the desk job 9 to 5, and one viral video later, and now you're doing AGT, you do Channel Zero, and then more calls come for more creature work. So where do we go from Channel Zero?
Well, from Channel Zero, I actually came back to Toronto to film a scene for It Chapter 2. Now, ultimately, It Chapter 2 was a really long movie, and my one scene did not make it into the final cut. So that was my next big thing, which I thought, oh my gosh, it's a huge Hollywood movie. I'm missing out on Hellboy. I did play the role of Baba Yaga in the Hellboy reboot that came out last summer, and that was around the time of AGT as well. Everything happened at once. That viral video it was, I guess, something people hadn't seen before. So I was getting all sorts of calls. After Channel Zero, there was, The Flash. The Flash was my big one that came, I think, right off the heels of AGT. I think my audition had just aired, and then they released the fact that I was now playing a role of Ragdoll in the superhero series The Flash. It's a contortionist supervillain who can bend in any way he pleases, and he just gets up generally to no good. The articles were like, this HR guy now is an actor. Look, he's going to be on this show. And it was really awesome. I got to fly to Vancouver, meet the cast. They were all wonderful. And I actually got to reprise my role as Ragdoll a couple times, every so often. I just came back, actually.
I do remember hitting you up on Messenger,
yes, saying,
Troy, look at this. I'm like, you're trending on Twitter right now. And you're
yes.
And you're like, is that a good thing? I don't
I was boring. I didn't have Twitter or Instagram, or I actually made them because of like the crazy response that AGT got. And then I realized I had to make a social media presence to kind of separate my own boring personal Facebook there wasn't much going on there. But people want to know, who is this guy? So I made the Twitter and the Facebook and all of that. I still have no idea how to use them. Afraid of them, because people on Twitter are scary. But yes, I was trending on Twitter for a while.
Just to briefly touch back on the AGT thing, that was one of the things that they asked of you, right? Was to make some kind of social media presence and
yes,
to kind of campaign for yourself, basically.
Kind of. It's also the fact that, and they were telling the truth. People who are well liked on AGT, people talk about them, they search them up, they want to know more about them, they want to interact with their fans. So you make that profile, and I've had other people who've been on AGT, other friends, and their followers, I think, their followers skyrocket overnight because the show is a really popular show. Millions of people watch it. I didn't realize how big it was until I got there, and then I got nervous all over again.
Also talking about Hellboy, which I feel like Hellboy didn't get a fair shake at the box office and in theaters. Also, and it's not just lip service because you're on the show here, but most of every review I read said that Baba Yaga was probably the best thing about the film. And Baba Yaga should have been the primary villain as much as...
Well, Mia Jovovich as the Blood Queen was amazing. But I don't know, that puts a smile on my face. I think my scene was just a little different. It slowed everything down, because for a lot of the movie, Hellboy is on a rampage. He's killing giants and monsters left and right, which is awesome. But my scene kind of slowed everything down, and there was almost like a horror vibe there. Like, it was this witch who eats children, and she talks with Hellboy a lot, and then we have that little fight scene near the end. It was a strange moment that really does stick out in your head. Her house is on chicken legs. It was something very different, very memorable. So maybe that's why people came away remembering that scene.
They also say that it seemed like Baba Yaga had a lot more history with Hellboy than the Blood Queen did. So they felt like there was more history there to build up Baba Yaga being the primary villain. But with Baba Yaga, obviously, if you go and see the film, they dubbed over a female actress voice over your speaking. How long does it take to turn Troy James into the Baba Yaga?
It took quite a few hours, actually. It was the prosthetic. Like, she had a full chest piece. I had a silicone breasts that were quite heavy. A cowl, the hair, the hands, the contacts, the teeth. It was a whole ordeal. So I think maybe 2 or 3 hours in the chair getting all the prosthetics on, and then the costume, of course. loads of fun. Yeah, prosthetics work and makeup, it's a much bigger deal than you might think. You don't just slap on some makeup and outdoor. It takes some time.
How many days were you on Hellboy for?
I think we shot the scene of our house in about 2 or 3 days, and then there were some rehearsals as well. So I know we shot Hellboy, at least my scenes, in Bulgaria. So I remember being there for about a week, maybe a week and a half. And I would say the last 4 days were shoot days.
So with It Chapter 2, that was like a one and done thing, right?
Yeah, it was a single day shoot. I wonder if it's not on the deleted scenes. I wonder if I'm allowed to talk about it. Maybe even without going into too much detail, it would have been Mike's version of him getting the totem. You know how all the other kids had to find their artifact to. You notice that Mike in the library didn't. He stayed there pretty much the whole film. At one point, you see him drop a book, and it opens up to see the article of his parents that had died in the fire. And that was the scene that we would have shot with Pennywise, me, Javier Botet, and Mike. It would have been that scene of his parents dying and him seeing the nightmarish scene that Pennywise lays out for him.
Was Pretzel Jack a mask? It looked like it was...
No, it was also prosthetics.
Oh, okay.
And Pretzel Jack was one of the longer ones because he had many different looks. If you follow the show, you'll see that there's a part where he gets shot in the face and he's got blood wounds everywhere. He's got a bloody handprint on his face at some points. And because we shot out of order, it was every day was potentially a different look. And it wasn't just a mask. There were, like, you'd put the prosthetic on, but then you would put the cheeks on, the chin, the mouth, the forehead, the nose. It was all a bunch of different pieces, but assembled so well that it looked like one piece or a mask. So that's kudos to Mind Warp Effects, the special effects studio that created Pretzel Jack.
And how many days you think it took for Pretzel Jack that you were on set?
Maybe 40, 45. I was in Winnipeg for about 2.5 months shooting. And there were 6 episodes in the miniseries. So it was there were many days in the chair.
Wow. Okay. What do you do during all this time in the chair? Are you just conversing with the team or reading or meditating?
Sitting quietly and being patient because they're painting your face. You can't really be looking down or around or talking too much if they're working around your mouth. They're gluing things to your face. So you sit there and yeah, you can talk a little bit, but for the most part, you just accept the process that you're going to be sitting in this chair before everyone else gets to set because it takes 3 hours to put your makeup on. So you're getting there at 4 a.m. and the rest of the crew's getting there at 7. You do what you got to do.
Oh, wow. I'm sure it's a lot quicker to remove and take off at the end of the day.
It still takes a considerable amount of time to take off. Removing Pretzel Jack, I think, took about an hour because you don't just peel it off your face. It's glued on and it's not going anywhere. So you got to remove the glue in much the same way as you apply it. It's a process.
So we've talked about Pretzel Jack. We've talked about Baba Yaga. We've talked about Ragdoll. Now, Ragdoll's a little bit different because...
Ragdoll is a mask.
Ragdoll is a mask. So, because that I did notice. So, seems like a bit shorter of a time than in the chair if it's primarily a mask. But it looks like you did have contacts for the role, right? Or they...
There's only one, like, for Ragdoll himself, when you see him with the mask on, his eyes are pitch black.
Right.
And I think that was post-production. They black out my eyes. It just looks scarier. You can't tell where he's looking. His mouth doesn't move. It's terrifying.
Agreed.
But you do see my mugshot at one point as Peter Merkel.
Yes.
And I have the red wig, and I think I chose to wear contacts that day. And yeah, now Peter Merkel has gray eyes.
And all that's going on, you've got these people following what you're doing, your creature work. One of the things that I noticed, because I'm a supporter and fan of your work, is that my wife and we collect Funko Pops.
Ah, yes.
And so for listeners who don't know, Funko Pops are those little things that you see in every store, everywhere. They're 4-inch tall little action figures that have big heads, and everything seems to have a pop now. Even like historical figures have pops. Serial characters have pops. I was very upset when Hellboy came out that every character in Hellboy had a pop except for the Baba Yaga. So that disappointed me. That made me sad. And then, but I know you shared on social media that someone went ahead and made you a Ragdoll pop, did they not?
Yes, the Monster Maiden made pops of Pretzel Jack, Baba Yaga, and Jangly Man, and they're my favorite things in the world. I love them. Pretzel Jack goes everywhere with me on my travels.
Nice. Does Pretzel Jack should have his own little Instagram account, like the roaming gnome, where you just take pictures of Pretzel Jack in various countries and landscapes?
That's something.
Yeah. Has there been other fan type things that you've gotten? Like I'm sure you get like messages or comments in social media, but what other interesting things have fans of your work done or that you've seen?
I think it was during Halloween, I saw some pictures of people dressing up like Ragdoll and Pretzel Jack, which brought me unbelievable joy. I was super happy. I never would have thought people liked the characters enough or so much that they would actually want to dress up as them. But that made me really happy to see.
Continuing on now, like this journey, we've done the Baba Yaga, we've been on Ragdoll and recurring on Ragdoll. In fact, you just got off another stint as Ragdoll, right, for the upcoming season?
Yes. And I'm looking forward to this one. This one I think is going to be a really good one.
Oh, nice. Where do you go in your travels following your first stint as Ragdoll? So you do Ragdoll.
Yes.
It's all happening around the same time.
Yes. So after Ragdoll was Scary Stories. Scary Stories and It Chapter 2 happened at the same time. Sorry, I think I have to go back. When I said it early on after Channel Zero, that was, I think, the audition or like just the precursor. But actual shooting of It Chapter 2 happened in October, the same time that Scary Stories was filming.
Okay, so you're very busy then. You're bouncing between all this. And in Scary Stories, you are...
the Jangly Man. He's a rotting corpse with appendages. He's all sewn up and patched up from different body parts. The first time you see him, all of his body parts fall into the chimney and reassemble themselves in a really gruesome fashion before you see him in his glory as the Jangly Man.
Yes, and because we had discussed it after I went and saw Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, a friend of mine went and he saw it on Blu-ray and was like, well, yeah, but, it's mostly CGI. And I was like, that is where you are wrong, sir. Because you and I talked about it, and I was like, tell me about, Jangly Man. I'm like, was that you doing this? And like, there's scenes on a car, and a lot of it is you.
Yep. Guillermo del Toro is the producer, and he is very big on making things as practical as possible. So when it comes to practical effects, if you have someone who can do the moves, by all means, it looks great when you see it happening for real. You can always kind of tell what is real and what has been altered.
Yeah.
I think that's why Jangly Man had such a profound effect. People didn't know. They thought, well, there's no way that's a real person. That must be CG, because who could do that? And then it turns out in the behind the scenes, people realized, no, that was actually him. And big appreciation for that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that post-production seemed to do when you and I were discussing it was they added like a bit of like a quality to the skin of the character, it seemed.
Yeah, skin texture. They made the eyes blink and they made the mouth move, because I was wearing a mask where the mouth didn't move, and Jangly Man does talk. So they did add VFX to the blinking and talking to make the head look like a real head.
Since that was primarily a rubber suit, how much time do you think it would take you to get into Jangly Man?
I think Jangly Man was, even though it was a rubber suit, I think it was the most time-consuming costume I've ever had to wear, because they had to paint I was barefoot and I had bare hands. So they had to paint my hands and feet to match the rubber suit. So that's layers and layers of paint to get that same grimy look where it doesn't look like a person in a suit with painted hands. It looks like all one piece. And getting it all off at the end of the day, that they had to paint me into the suit and then put pieces of latex where the suit ended and where the paint started. So it was an even blend. It didn't look like you didn't see the cuff of the suit.
Mm.
And getting the paint off at the end of the day, the paint crept into like the soles of my feet. And I think I had black feet for weeks after we wrapped because I could not scrub it out. It was awful. And every day I would have to go back into Jangly Man, so I wouldn't try to scrub it all off that night, knowing I'd be back in costume in about 8 to 12 hours.
Yes.
So it just added layer after layer of paint. Memories.
Oh, man. How long were you in production on Scary Stories as the Jangly Man?
Trying to remember, maybe a couple a couple weeks. It wasn't every day. We shoot shoot schedule. Sometimes they're shooting a different scene, but I think it was about 2 weeks of shooting.
You're listening to The Weekend Take. Visit our Patreon page to become a patron of The Weekend Take, and for as little as $1, you'll receive exclusive content and perks.
One thing we didn't cover, and is kind of one of probably the nice perks about working in the industry that I like, and I'm sure you like as well, is the travels. I mean, like in these roles, where are you getting? I know you mentioned Baba Yaga was in Bulgaria, but so where are you getting to go for some of these? And Pretzel Jack was Vancouver?
Pretzel Jack was Winnipeg, Manitoba, but I've been many places. I've been to Cape Town, South Africa. I've been to Tokyo, Japan. I've been to Cologne, Germany, France a couple times, Vancouver. Just last summer, I was way up in the Arctic, Canadian Arctic, in a small town called Pugniktung, Nunavut. It was beautiful. I saw icebergs. I climbed a mountain. It was unlike anything I've ever seen before. I just got back from New Orleans, filming a feature over there. The travel is amazing. And anytime I get to go to Los Angeles, I say, absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah, well, that's where, thankfully, in our travels, our paths were able to cross again. We were both happened to be in Los Angeles at the same time working on projects, so we got to get together. It was nice to catch up there.
Indeed.
In all of this, so you have Scary Stories and Jangly Man. You finally get that redemption. They make a pop of Jangly Man.
Yes.
Which came out around Halloween time, which was great.
I have my own action figure. It's crazy.
I know there's certain things that you've been working on recently that you cannot divulge details about.
Non-disclosure agreements.
So you said New Orleans, and when we met, you were working on something in Los Angeles, another project entirely.
Yeah.
But in all of this, outside of the film world, which I know that's one of the primary focuses of the podcast here, but you also continued your relationship with kind of the family of Got Talent projects.
Yes.
You showed up on Australia's Got Talent.
I've always wanted to go to Australia.
How was that experience?
I wish I could have stayed longer. I really would have, but I had to go to Italy for a project immediately after, so I couldn't stay for very long. But Italy was great. I did Italy's Got Talent as well, and I ate all the pizza. I think I ate all of Italy's pizza. I understand why Italians are particular about their food. It's because they have really, really good food over there. I would be too.
But you had to be careful to make sure that, if you're working on a film, that the rubber suit still fits right.
Yes, that's my problem. I'm used to working in HR where I could eat wherever I wanted, whatever I wanted. But now I have to think, well, darn, I have to keep my body in shape to keep doing these roles. I've never heard of an overweight contortionist.
We mentioned Australia's Got Talent, Italy's Got Talent. What other members of the kind of talent circuit did you participate in?
France's Got Talent, and I did World's Got Talent in China, which was really neat. And I'm about to do another one in Europe.
Now you begin to create an act with another contortionist. That act that we're about to talk about is what you did for France's Got Talent.
Yes.
So it wasn't just Troy James solo contortionist. Now you've made more of an act with it by adding S.
Yes. Last year, 2019, me and a friend I met on a movie set, S. Hodelmoser, they're a contortionist as well. And we put our skill set together and created an act for a circus festival in Paris called Cirque de Demain. And it was a new, unique act. We were creatures. We were both kind of insectoid, but not quite insects. Like, there's no word for it. Just strange creatures that move in different ways and then meet. And the whole act is what happens when these two creatures meet. Are they friends? Are they foes? Do they like each other? Do they hate each other? But we end up finding that we move in more unique ways together than apart. So we come together and make a whole bunch of really cool shapes to some amazing music. And it went over really well. We won the Moulin Rouge Prize at the Circus Festival. We got to then go to China, Zhuhai, to perform in the Chinese International Circus Festival. And then to wrap up the year, we performed in Paris for France's Got Talent. We won the Golden Buzzer, actually, and we got to go back for the live rounds. And we wrapped up the year with a small performance for a few days at the Moulin Rouge, which was amazing.
How was it to perform on such hallowed ground as the Moulin Rouge?
I couldn't believe it. I never would have thought. I went to the Moulin Rouge for the first time at the beginning of the year when I was at the Circus Festival, because they all know each other, and they said, "Yeah, come on down, watch the show." Never would I have imagined by the end of the year that I would be performing on that same stage that goes back years and years. It was such an honor.
There's this dichotomy of work that you do. So you do this very performance art piece work like with S and on the stage for the various Got Talents, which is a very public forum. People see you and they see your performance. But then there's your work in film, which is exclusively, creature work, where you're in rubber suits, prosthetics, masks, and things like that. What do you feel are the kind of pros and cons of each of those?
Well, I don't know. I'm in general a little bit of an introvert and a shyer person, so I kind of at the moment prefer the monster under the mask kind of the type of roles I get, because I still get to do what I love and transform into something entirely different, whether it's a demon or a monster or an alien, and have a lot of fun transforming into another person, another creature. But then there's the very physical and real world of, now my name is Troy and I'm on stage. It also kind of tied over into one project I did. It was a movie called Rabid, a horror movie by the Soska sisters, Jen and Sylvia Soska. And I actually played myself for a while, and it was terrifying because I looked into the camera and you see me and my face and my hands, and I'm talking and walking. I almost preferred later on, when I wasn't as instantly recognizable as Troy. I think I prefer monster work.
Do you get recognized in public as Troy James from the various Got Talents?
Yes, it's happened a few times. It's actually happened around the world. Got Talent is a huge franchise. I remember I was in Spain, Madrid, at a Burger King, and someone there in line said, you're that guy. And he pulled up my audition video, and he wanted a selfie right there in line at Burger King. It was very strange. Just to be recognized as myself. I feel like that is reserved for like big celebrities, like, I don't know, Julia Roberts or Brad Pitt. Not little old me who was on a talent show once upon a time.
Flip side of that, do you ever have people kind of recognize you for your creature work when you're out?
A few times, yes. I've had some people who've said, "Oh, you're Pretzel Jack. I loved him. He was a great creature, great performance. I loved your work," or "I'm a big fan of your work." Ragdoll in particular. There are some big fans of The Flash. And when I performed as Ragdoll, for a long time afterwards, even up until now on social media, people will still drop messages of, "I hope to see you on the show again sometime. You were really cool." It makes me happy.
Excellent. And so that kind of leads into, you've been invited to do your first Comic-Con.
Well, it wasn't Comic-Con, but it was a horror convention.
Okay. How does that feel now to now you've been asked to come and be a part of this, and this is kind of the blending of the two worlds, because now it's like taking the mask off, because people are going to know you, yes, from the Got Talent circuit, but now this is a convention where it's kind of celebrating your work as your creature work, and now you're Troy James, the man under the mask. How is that going to feel, you think?
I don't even know what to think. I honestly can't imagine. It's this weird intersection of all, like, I guess I've run in a few different circles. I've done horror films, I've done live TV, reality TV. I've entered the DC universe as a supervillain. So I kind of fit into a bunch of different boxes, and it's unbelievable. I still can't believe there are people there who won't even give me the time of day and would actually like to come up and meet me or shake my hand or ask for an autograph. Like, it's almost unbelievable to me.
Have you had any other interesting interactions with fans?
Yes. When I shot that horror movie up in Pungnaktoon, in Nunavut, America's Got Talent was a big thing over there. So when I got there, everyone in town knew who I was. And it's a very small town. So everywhere I went, the children would run out in the street screaming for me. And I would of course, scare them or do a small little routine. And they would run screaming. It was a lot of fun. But it's always surprising, just out of nowhere, maybe at a bar or a waiting in line at the bank, just people who have seen you on TV. And I think to myself, I was only on maybe a round or two of AGT, or I've done media where you don't see my face, but I didn't think I would be recognized that much.
So I think it's safe to say at this point that there's certainly no going back to a desk in an HR department.
I hope not. I've done too much. I'd be pretty sad if I had to give it all up now.
Because of those pesky NDAs, you can't say too much, but what else does 2020 hold for Troy?
I am shooting another big feature after Europe in Toronto. I'll be shooting in a couple months, and that will be a film I think you'll be able to see in theaters. And I'm excited for that because I'm learning an entirely new skill for it, and I hope you like it. You'll be the first person I tell when you can see it.
And that's been the other thing, is that even in your act as a contortionist on the Got Talents, you've had to kind of grow and expand your talent in itself. Because I know when I saw your audition on America's Got Talent, and then I saw your audition on Australia's Got Talent.
Yeah.
And in that time span, when I saw those two auditions, I just saw so much growth.
Oh, thank you.
In the performance, because you added more layers to it, like even like the little twitches and the certain body movements and things like that. So there is a level of always staying on top of your talent and growing it.
Yeah, always learning and growing. You had mentioned watching AGT and Australia's Got Talent. I still have a hard time watching myself, and I haven't made it all the way through my Australia's Got Talent audition just because they keep zooming in on my face, and I hate the sound of my voice recorded, so I get really embarrassed and I can't watch it. Other people have to watch it and tell me it was okay.
Are you able to watch your creature work on screen though?
Yes, that's different because I see it not as me. I just see it as a creature. It's not Troy. It's Jangly Man or it's Pretzel Jack. It's very different.
I know at one point we were talking about that you had to introduce wire work.
Oh, yes.
Into some of your roles.
For Hellboy, ultimately it didn't make it into Hellboy because the fight scene was supposed to be much longer, but we had shortened it for extra dialogue and building the history and story between Hellboy and Baba Yaga. But yeah, I was supposed to do wire work and crawl up on the walls and crawl along the ceiling. I was really looking forward to that, and I hope in another project I get to do some more wire work.
I know you said you keep in touch with the AGT people that you like, kind of that you've met along the way, and the circus performers. Do you kind of casually still run into one another of people that you meet, or is it usually on the job reconnecting?
I've met one on AGT. Well, not even one. Or I've met people who have performed in previous seasons. So when I was working with a lot of the circus artists, they would say, oh yes, I was on France's Got Talent last year. And if you're keeping up to date with America's Got Talent champions, there are two contestants I know. There's Duo Destiny. They're amazing. We worked together in Paris, and then in China first. And then we performed together at Moulin Rouge. And so it seems like everywhere we're all kind of traveling in the similar circles. There's another one, Strauss Serpent. He's also really flexible, like I am. I'm pretty sure even more so. And he's also from France. And we met just because when you perform the way I do, you meet like-minded people and you learn and grow from each other. And it's nice to see everyone growing from their Got Talent shows and moving on in the world. I kind of drifted more towards film and television, and a lot of other contestants go more towards live performance and shows and circus contracts, etc.
What does it feel like, or what kind of mental kind of transformation do you kind of take yourself through when becoming a creature for film or television?
I wish I had like a really profound answer, like I'm a method actor, I really think about what the creature is, and then I get into character. But no, I just kind of, it's not that exciting. I read the script and I say, oh, okay, how about this? Does this work? And then the directors will say, oh, that's perfect, that's wonderful, or let's try this. And it's a lot of body movement. A lot of the characters I play don't speak, so they have to convey what they're trying to do through their movement. And I think I have maybe a natural aptitude for that. And whether it's Pretzel Jack, if you want to be lovable, but also dangerous, or you're just a ruthless corpse like Jangly Man who's just will stop at nothing to get his prey, or if you're playing a witch who eats children and secretly loves Hellboy.
So I got to imagine there's probably a bit of kind of exploration and discovery, like once you're fully in character.
Mm-hmm. I remember, especially with Pretzel Jack, I was still very new to all this, and I worked in corporate. So when I went to work, my boss would say, "I want you to do A, B, and C," and I did. And so then I got on set of Channel Zero, and I asked Evan Katz, the director, okay, so in the script it says Pretzel Jack does a little dance, or he does a weird contortion from like point A to point B. And I said, well, how should I do it? What do you want? And he would say, oh, no, I believe you. What would you do? What would Pretzel Jack do? And he gave me all of this freedom, which was terrifying at first because I was very much used to someone telling me precisely how they wanted something done in this many steps. That was my job. That was HR. It was everything was protocol. So having that weird artistic license to just do what I pleased, and then constantly wondering, was that right? Was that okay? Did you like it? And I had to start believing in myself, as corny as that sounds. But ultimately, I think I did a good job.
Do you have a favorite creature that you've portrayed so far?
I like them all for different reasons. I like Pretzel Jack because I see myself in him the most. Baba Yaga was just deliciously... like, she was just a really powerful witch who could do whatever she wanted, and no one would stop her. No one could say boo. Ragdoll was fun because he was a psychopath supervillain, just causing suffering for the sake of it. And Jangly Man was the most mobile. I got to do a lot of really cool movement. So it's hard to choose.
That's fine. They are all very different in their own respects, for sure. Troy, I mean, if listeners of the show want to learn more about you or get in touch, how best could listeners reach out and say hi and show their appreciation for what you do?
I have 2 pages. I'm more active, I guess, on Instagram as Twisty Troy, but I do have a Facebook fan page that AGT recommended I make. Also, I think that's also Twisty Troy. You can find me on the internet with that handle.
Am I missing any particular part of the journey that you're proud of or want to talk about that we haven't touched upon?
Not so much. I think you got most of it. A lot of things are like really small projects that haven't come out yet, so it's hard to really talk about them in any meaningful way when I can't tell you what it is, or it hasn't come out yet. You can't actually see it for yourself. But I'm hoping this year is going to be a really good year, and you'll be able to see me in a couple other things. I hope you like them.
I always try to have that keen eye for when I see a performance on screen. I have to message you and be like, was this you?
Yes, a lot of people do. They'll say, was this you in this commercial? And then I had to say, no, that's just another flexible black man. That's not me. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. And then I'll say, you found me. Because I'm embarrassed a lot, and I don't necessarily show people when it comes out. I just kind of let it live.
The horror convention that we talked about earlier, that's coming up, right? Do you know the where and the when for that?
It's going to be rescheduled.
Okay. Troy, I mean, I just like when we were in LA, I could talk your ear off and chat with you for hours, but you know, our listeners don't have that much time. But it's always great talking with you, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to come here onto the show and chat with me.
Oh, no, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Listeners can also check out The Weekend Take on social media as well. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Weekend Take. We're on Twitter at Weekend Take. And be sure to check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/The Weekend Take, where for as little as $1 per month, you can become a patron of The Weekend Take and get exclusive extended cuts of episodes in case you want to hear more of the conversation that Troy and I had today or any of our previous guests. You also get early access to episodes, and starting the season, you get patron exclusive episodes, including our upcoming The Rise and Fall of Skywalker series that we're doing, where we look at the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and then the spin-offs being Rogue One and Solo, the series being The Mandalorian, and what the future of the Star Wars franchise is. So that's coming up for patrons exclusively. And again, you can become a patron at patreon.com/The Weekend Take. But otherwise, that about wraps us for this week. Again, you know, Troy, thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully, I know Kyle and Will are hard at work on the feature-length script for Look Twice. So,
oh, yes.
I hope that all comes together so you and I can pair up on set once again.
I am looking forward to that. It's like the short for Look Twice was amazing. I cannot wait for the feature. And we get to be reunited.
Yes. For listening to the show, I hope you have a great week ahead, and I will catch you all next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Weekend Take. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Visit our Patreon page to become a patron of The Weekend Take. And for as little as $1, you'll receive exclusive content and perks.